what you want, what direction you want with it.
All right. Welcome to the podcast, all stylized with the K-Bid episode 3. And I brought someone who's very important to me because he signs my paychecks. And to all of us, he is the president of K-Bid, PJ Fanberg. How you doing, PJ?
I'm good, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Fantastic. So if I had to write down what my objective was for this podcast, I want everyone, all affiliates, bidders to kind of understand and know who you are. Because again, you're kind of calling the shots for the company. So, PJ, how'd you first get into the auction world?
So I came from the nonprofit space, actually, and it was through actually knowing Ray. He was a donor of one of the programs that I used to run. And at that time, we were kind of downsizing our operations at that nonprofit. It was during the financial crisis of, 2009, 10, 11. It was pretty hard on a lot of nonprofits. We streamlined things there, and Mr. Caruso asked me to come over to K-Bid. And that was at a time when K-Bid was still doing corporate auctions. So when a lead would come in, K-Bid would say, hey, is this something we want to do, or is this something we want to send out to one of the affiliates? Because the affiliate program wasn't new, but it was newer still at that point. It had been around for, I think, 5-6 years at that point. There's probably 15, 20 affiliates that were posting pretty regularly. And so K-Bid was kind of in its transition phase from going from an auction house, solder home commission company, to K-Bid, and then to what it is today. So we were in that kind of going from doing auctions ourselves to becoming just a marketplace for affiliates. And so at that time, I was brought in to basically do the company auctions and see if this is a direction we wanted to keep going. And we did it for a few years, and I kind of gave the recommendation that K-Bid is so good at marketing the auctions. Why don't we give these leads and all of these contacts to our affiliates and let them go do the auctions, make the money, and be successful for everybody. So after doing that for a couple years, the decision was made.
Just to clarify, you were literally setting up. You were doing the cataloging, the clerk, the staffing. You were actually operating the sales themselves, correct?
Correct. I was the auctioneer for all intents and purposes. We had a team of about 5 or 6 that helped with everything from setup to removals to inspections, titles. We did firearms. We did kind of the whole gamut of everything. It was a lot of work, which our affiliates are no stranger to. They understand that very well. And at that point, it was kind of like, we would be better off just marketing these sales and running a really good website. At the same time, that's when K-Bid had been designing online auction solutions, OAS, which is our bidding platform. The decision was made to transition away from doing auctions ourselves and then do more of the technical side, the marketing side through the website and the marketing channels. So I moved over to that side for about a year and a half. There was an opportunity still with a lot of these customers and leads that came in. And at the same time, my wife and I were adopting a child. So I needed a little bit more flexibility. And so I decided to become an affiliate myself. And so that's how that began in about what year was that? 2015.
Just for a little background info. So you were doing auctions under the K-Bid banner.
Correct.
Then you kind of went in and helped operations at K-Bid while basically servicing affiliates. So affiliates did the actual on-site work. You would manage the incoming leads or software problems. And then at some point you transitioned into Fanberg auctions, correct? That's what you're
Correct.
saying.
So
you became
that was in
an
2016.
affiliate.
I was an affiliate from 2016 to 2020. And we tried to be set up as a very professional, very good branding. We had a little space. We actually used a space at the K-Bid warehouse for a while. And then we also opened up our own space up in Elk River for a couple of years. It was a great experience. I was able to have that flexibility with the new child at home. We actually ended up adopting a second child shortly after that, which was a little bit more challenging. He's still challenging to this day, but we love him very much. And and then in 2018, I went back to get my MBA at St. Cloud State. And while I was finishing up that, we had to do basically what's a thesis or a paper, if you will. And I wanted to do it. I was the only auctioneer that has ever taken that program to anybody's knowledge, because there's not a whole lot of MBA auctioneers out there. And so I did my master's thesis, if you will, on Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers, which is the largest heavy equipment auctioneer in the world. And so I started that in January of 2020. And then in March of 2020, this flu bug or something, COVID-19, kind of took over the world and shut the auction world down pretty significantly. And so I did all my research, did all my paper and everything. And then in May, when I was finishing up, I'd finished up paper, graduate, everything was good. Didn't get to walk because of COVID. Thanks a lot, COVID. But I was cleaning up the bookmarks on my Chrome dashboard or bookmark title, and I had a spot because you had to do so much research on these companies. I had a spot for help wanted at Ritchie Brothers, and I saw that they were hiring for a sales rep for my area. And so I called up the regional sales manager and said, "Hey, I saw you got an opening." And we had lunch at in Rogers, and I had an offer the next day. And so at that point, I called Ray here at K-Bid and said, "Hey, here's the deal. The biggest auction company in the world offered me a position, and I think it would be a great learning experience. And it's from all intents and purposes, looks like a great organization. And I'd like to just go learn how they do it. I want to see how the best does it." So I decided to close down Fanberg Auctions. Now, I had a warehouse full of stuff, and it was hard to do auctions yet because of COVID, so it was a little bit difficult. And Ritchie Brothers needed me to go right away. They had a pretty significant frac sand liquidation that they had to do in Wisconsin, and that was going to be one of my first out of the gate things as a $5 million frac sand project out in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, with no cell service or anything. So I was basically running with my head cut off for about 3 months there, getting my own warehouse cleaned out, and then operating over these 4 pits that were spread all over the place with equipment that, I'll be honest, I was not an expert on frac sand mining going into this auction. And so I had to learn a lot about that and learn about the Ritchie Brothers and Iron Planet systems. But it taught me an awful lot about how the very big players in this space operate. How do you transport items that are, frac sand washing plants that take being made. Mr. Cruz was making eyes at me in the window here. Sorry. How, like a frac sand plant, how do you dismantle that and get that to its next buyer, And so it was learning a lot about the logistics of cranes and trucking and financing and a whole world outside of selling estate sales or smaller items like I had been previously doing. And it was a great opportunity. And for 6 years, I loved it. It was a fantastic position. I was pretty successful there. We had several good years selling, everything from dozers to trucks to attachments to excavators. And the biggest thing I sold was a $2.25 million King airplane out in New York, which I had never laid eyes on. It was a corporate jet for one of my customers here. And they're like, "Hey, can you sell planes?" And, I'm an auctioneer. So obviously my first reaction is, yeah, of course I can, even though I had never sold one before. So we had to figure out the requirements around that and just how to list it. So we hired the right people that knew what they were talking about and helped us get the listing right. And it did very well. And so I sold about $100 million in my 6 years there overall. And then the opportunity came up to come back home to K-Bit, and it was the right opportunity. So we went with it. And so here I am.
I have a couple questions about your journey. So like when you were at Ritchie Brothers, can you talk about like the workflow of someone has equipment they want to sell? What did that pipeline look like, and where did you fit in that pipeline? So I have stuff, I call up the main line. Talk me through how that ends up sold.
So at a company like Ritchie Brothers, there's 2 main ways it's going to happen. First is we have an online form like any website does. "Hey, contact us and we'll get you." And that would come to me. That rarely happened, to be honest with you. The second thing that would happen is as I was a territory sales manager. So it was my job not so much to wait for those calls to come in, but to go out to all the construction companies and the trucking companies and the government entities and say, "Hey, we want you to sell with us and this is why." And one of the things that just blows my mind to this day is how many companies just really don't have a plan for getting rid of their assets. They don't really know what to do with them. And so it was our job to go in and explain the benefits of why an auction is the best way to sell your assets, how we can do it, what's the cost going to be associated with, and convince them that it's the best way to do it.
One of the things I've just known, because I've been familiar with quite a few larger companies, is one of the options that gets on the table for working with these people is buying a deal, right? Like you can literally just purchase the assets outright and then auction them off. In terms of that, if you had to break down percent of buy versus commission, where was your distribution on that?
It's a growing area for sure. And the nice thing about being part of Ritchie Brothers, who does $18 billion in sales a year, is they've got a big checkbook. And so when a company is retiring and a seller or an owner is like, hey, I want X amount of dollars for my equipment, first of all, a lot of times they don't really know what it's worth. And so we have to go in and do a full appraisal on it. And that requires good information in to get good information out. So we've got to go out and take all the pictures and measure tracks and tread depth and make sure things aren't leaking. And you got to look for a lot of the little things that are going to take a $400,000 dozer and make it a $250,000 dozer pretty quick. Just looking at things like undercarriages and hours and those kinds of things. So we would take all that information, and then we had systems internally there at Ritchie Brothers and a panel of pricing analysts that are experts in this field. And this is literally what they do all day, every day, is look at packages of equipment and say, this one is worth, they go line by line on every piece and then make sure that they're not missing anything themselves, because it's a pretty big risk when you're writing $1 million checks, and you're wrong on equipment. Things go wrong pretty quick. So what was your original question? I
think you've answered it. Another thing, so when you were getting these deals, when you're dealing with these large sales with lots of equipment, if you did do it on commission, were you often guaranteeing deals? Like, is that a tool that's used with heavy equipment quite a bit?
It was
or like a
probably
split guarantee?
It's probably about 10%. So we would walk in. Most of the people are just straight commission, just because there is so much work that goes into doing a full appraisal on this kind of stuff. Most retirements are a guaranteed deal. And another thing that's really big is what's called the dealer pass-through. So if you went and wanted to buy a new car, you could trade in your current car on the new car, and then the difference in what your old car is worth and your new car, you don't have to pay sales tax on that percentage. Well, the same applies it's a like kind exchange, basically. So the same applies for heavy equipment. If you've got a $200,000 dozer and you're buying a $1 million dozer, you can trade in that $200,000 dozer for $1 million one, and then you're only paying sales tax on $800,000. Pretty significant savings. Now the problem, and this is where Ritchie Brothers does a pretty good job, and something that we could do a better job with if we had the right relationships, is if you have a Komatsu dozer and you're trading it in on a new cat, well, the cat dealer, Ziegler, doesn't really want that Komatsu dozer sitting on their yard. So what the like kind exchange allows you to do is send that dozer, that Komatsu, straight to Ritchie Brothers or to an auction house. We sell it, and then we just put the proceeds towards that new dozer. So they don't have to touch it. The seller gets the benefit of an auction, and then the auction house gets to make their commission. So it's kind of a win-win-win for everybody. And so that was another great tool that we had at our disposal there. So yeah, about 10% are the guarantee packages. And again, I just start rambling and I forget what your question was.
In terms of your customers, like since it's such a commodity, right? If you need an excavator, you need an excavator. You're going to get one. It doesn't matter. A lot of your customers repeat like these relationships, right? It's not a one and done. You're typically talking to them all the time about buying stuff, selling, like it's a living, breathing relationship in that world, correct?
100% relationship, especially when, you're doing 6-figure, 7-figure pieces of equipment. Sometimes it's about, they need somebody that they can trust, and they need a business that they can trust. And so when they get those two, then you have a good recipe for success. But yeah, relationships are everything in that space. And so I had some guys that I would talk to 3, 4, 5 times a week. They would just call me, like, especially if we're selling things on consignment or they're buying. That's the other thing, is you need to be a resource for them on both sides. So when they're looking for equipment, you need to help them on that side as well. And that can go for any specialized asset. So whether it's trading cards or smaller attachments or even like some estate sale things, when you know who your best buyers are and have that relationship with them, it becomes a really good two-way street. Relationships are so important. And it's really easy in the auction space to think, all right, I'm doing this estate sale, I'm done. Well, there's more after that. And that person, if they have a good experience, is going to tell other people based on the relationship that you had with them. So relationships are as important now as they've ever been, because we're in a world of AI is growing and automation is growing, and how can businesses get what you need with as few human interactions as possible is becoming the norm. And in sales and in what we do, that human touch is still so important. And people want to talk to a real person. They might not always like the answer, but they want to talk to a person so they can get an explanation, or they could just know that they're being heard. And when you have that kind of relationship with a seller, they come back to you.
In terms of, so like an affiliate right now at KBID could end up with a skid steer in a sale, right? They may not get a whole
I
yard.
hope they
Can
do.
yeah. So can you talk me through what all to do to catalog? So I'm gonna just give some examples. I've cataloged a lot of heavy equipment, washing a piece of equipment, so actually getting pressure washer, all that, painting, putting a new attachment. Talk me
Yeah,
through taking a video.
yeah. So put yourself in the buyer's shoes is really the best way to market any piece of equipment. What does the buyer want to know? All right. They want to see for sure the corner shots. They want to see the hour meters. They want to see the serial number. They want to see the track. What kind of condition is it in? They want to see the interior. They want to see the seat where they're going to sit. Like if you got a broken up, cut up seat, spend the $250, go get a new seat and put it in there, because the person that's buying that piece of equipment is visualizing themselves in that piece of equipment. If they're sitting on a piece of junk seat, they're instantly going to have a worse opinion of that piece of equipment. Painting is okay if it's done right. A poor paint job can also be just as detrimental. Other things that a lot of people don't think about are decals. Decals are a super easy way to enhance the value of any piece of equipment. If it's got, if it's a Bobcat and the Bobcat logo got scratched off on a tree or something, go spend the $100, put the nice fresh decal on there. And it can really enhance a piece of equipment. Video is always great. People want to know that what they're bidding on an auction. They don't have time to always go to the inspection. As much as we push it, as much as we encourage it, they just don't have time, or it's too far away, or whatever the situation is. Showing that video shows them it operates, put it under a little pressure, put it under a little load if you can. Show the blow by in the dipstick, show the exhaust. People want to know the things that are going to cost them a lot of money to fix. And if they know that those aren't a major problem, then they're going to be more likely to bid higher. Never sell a bucket or a piece of equipment without a bucket if it needs a bucket. So if a skid steer needs a bucket, go buy a bucket and sell it with the bucket. You'll get your money back. It just looks better. Same with excavators, dozers, make sure they have a blade, that kind of stuff. Sell a complete unit for them. Yeah, video, hours, show all the stuff that they want to see for sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if any affiliate ends up with a few pieces of equipment in an auction they're about to do, you are more than happy to be a resource to talk to them about how to sell it, things to look out for, right? Like you have no problem helping someone, making sure they're
100%.
quoting the right thing. Yeah. Okay, good. I'll make sure
And
his info is available at the end of this, but yeah, that's a resource I would not pass on. He's got the experience, so it's definitely worth touching on.
And I'm not
So
going to pretend to be the world's greatest equipment guy. Like I'm passable and I can Google the right questions if I need to get the right answers, but we'll for sure get you in the right direction. And if we need to bring in outside help, we've got a lot of contacts in the phone that we can call and make sure that our auctions on KBID look as good as humanly possible.
I got a little bit of a curveball here because I would love it if you could explain this world that's happened over the last couple of years of containers, right? We're getting these containers from overseas. Could you explain what that is, how it's changing the industry, and some things to look out for when selling that kind of stuff?
I think we're going to look back and see this as a time period. This was, the container period, where every auction house has at least some containers going through them, at least anyone that deal with construction equipment or heavy equipment in that regards. So China is flooding the market with these one-way containers that come over, and it's brilliant. Honestly, they're doing a very good job at it. So they're mass producing everything from attachments to tents to buildings to garages to shooting targets to toolboxes, all of this stuff, loading as much into a container as possible, shipping it over to the United States by the container ship full, and then sporadically spreading them across anybody that will sell them, and just absolutely flooding the market here. So what we're going to see at some point, and we've already seen quite a bit of degradation in the prices for these assets. So it's really the next step for the Chinese manufacturers is they need to diversify what they're selling. They need to find new avenue or new products to sell out of those containers, because it's drying up a little bit. There's not that same price that they were getting initially. So these containers are coming overpacked. They're a pain in the butt to unload. Things get damaged sometimes on the way over. It's very difficult often to get replacement parts for belts and blades and all this kind of stuff, because they're not brand name things. You can't just say, I need a Cat air filter. It might be a Briggs & Stratton engine usually, but for some of the mower blades and stuff, they're very custom. And so the price of them is about a third to a fourth of what a brand name mower might cost. like a flail mower or something, but you're getting a lower quality piece of equipment as well. So the industry as a whole is going to be kind of in a unique space as they have to transition away from these that have been doing so well for the last 5, 6, 7 years now. 6, 7, am I allowed to do that on a podcast? Is that the thing the kids do these days?
We're not
Six,
going to
seven?
do that.
Okay, we won't do that. We'll edit that out, right? But as the industry has to pivot away, it's going to be unique to see what comes in that vacuum because it's been a really nice bonus, really, for a lot of auction houses, including KBID has done very well with them. KBID is a great outlet for that kind of asset, but it's going to dry up at some point, and we
Yeah.
have to figure out what's next to keep those numbers up.
Couple stories I've heard, just want to get your thoughts on. So one, I've heard quite a few stories of them getting stuck at customs and getting like sent back or this and that. I've also heard stories of cooking oil being in the machine. So a lot of auctioneers and affiliates are saying, hey, replace the oil, don't try to run it, replace it with real oil and get moving. And I've also heard there's like job sites where like someone literally gets it for the job and just leaves it, right? It's turned into a different level of commodity. I just
Well,
think
and
it's so interesting.
during COVID, it was the perfect time for it, like those little mini excavators, because so many people were at home. They wanted to do little house projects. They went and looked what it would cost to rent a mini excavator for, 2, 3 weeks. And it was the same cost as basically buying one of these mini excavators. So they bought them, they've used them for 50 hours, and now they're sitting at hobby farms and farms all over the countryside here. And at some point, those are going to really hit the secondary market as people are like, I spent 4 or 5 grand on this mini excavator and I've used it 3 times because
Mm-hmm.
the average homeowner doesn't really need a mini excavator all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to see that coming
I'm
at
going to
some
move
point
on a
here.
little bit just because we're a little tight on time. Tell me about the day you decided you're coming back to KBID. So you're sitting there working on something, either quoting a deal or trying to do something. And was it a call? Ray called? Like, give me that day. How did you feel about it? Excitement?
So the previous president is a very good friend of mine. And, he was kind of explaining kind of his situation. And so I had a little heads up that there was an opportunity potentially coming. But I was very happy at my current job. And so I wanted to make sure that whatever I did, I wanted to leave on very good terms from Ritchie Brothers. They've been very good to me. It's very good contacts. I like the people there. It was a great job. And there was, room for advancement there as well. And I wanted to make sure everything was that good there. So I got the call that this was a possibility, and I just had to kind of temper it down at first. I wanted to be like, here's the deal. I'm going to finish up my contracts here and have a nice planned out exit. And so I gave them about a 6 week notice there just so I could get everything cleaned up. And we didn't really tell the customers until about the last week. So I in no way want to steal any business from them. I mean, we want to be a competitive auction space, but at the same time, I'm not here to go pirate and steal from someone else. We'll win them organically in the long run here. So, but yeah, when I got the call, it was I spoke with my wife, and I think she was very excited for it as well. I think my dad is the most excited because he's been a K bidder forever, and he's a father, so he likes to talk about his son, which is always great. He probably won't watch this, but love you, Dad. And yeah, so we made a plan, and here I am.
Here we are. We did it.
Here we are.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
now the work starts.
yeah. So we've made some changes, right? I do the tech. You've had me make some changes, and I kind of want to talk through them. So one of the things we've done is you noticed that there was some friction for buyers, right? So whether it's an old account that needed to add credit cards or stuff, give me some of your thoughts on why you lowered the friction for some buyers. The amount they could bid before getting turned off. You kind of went in and analyzed all that. Why?
I love money. That's why. And I want KBID to make lots of it, and I want our affiliates to make lots of it. There's always going to be this balance between we want to stop fraud and we want good people, good bidders to spend lots of money. And unfortunately, there's just bad people in this world that ruin everything for everybody. And the last thing we want is a person bidding on the site that has no intention of legally obtaining and paying for their item. That's the end of that's the whole idea in a nutshell. And so some of the things I was looking at is good people with good intent that live locally were trying to bid and they were hitting roadblocks. Some of it was because they had an account 15 years ago that was in good standing, but it just had become idle. And because of that, when they tried to create a new account, it flagged them as having two accounts, and then they're shut down on both of them. I'm like, well, that's defeating the purpose. Other things, we have safeguards in place to make sure a person's address and their credit card address are from the same locale, that it's not somebody using a fake credit card. But if they just simply put in the wrong state by accident on where they live, so they said, hey, I live in Medina, North Dakota, instead of Medina, Minnesota, it was flagging them. And every time we flag somebody and disable them, that's bids that aren't coming into the system. So I want to make sure that. And another thing that happens is a person will sign up and they just get so excited they bid on a lot of different auctions, fully intending to pay for them, and they're very low, like it's $5 bids. But if it's on a certain number of auctions, we have certain flags in place to make sure that somebody doesn't come in and just create an account and bid on everything, which is an appropriate flag. We just loosened it up a little bit so that a grandma bidding on cookie jars in 5 different estate sales doesn't get flagged and shut down forever for $25 worth of bids. So I just want to, it's going to be a test and revise situation, because fraudsters are always going to be, trying to be one step ahead of us. And because of the great team that you and your development team have assembled, we're pretty darn good. I mean, every auction company in the world deals with fraud, even the big ones like Rishi Brothers and Sotheby's and Meekum and everybody. They all have fraud that is occurring on their site, and none of us has the perfect answer for it. But as long as
It's
we
kind
can
of the price of
continue,
doing business, like if you have stuff available online, like it's just a price, and all we can do is try to make that percent as low as possible. But we'd hate to lose real business in the name of, 0.01%,
yeah.
which is
And we're
tough.
setting up a lot of, like, some of the reports that you've helped me set up has identified fraud that we've been able to stop. And the system does, you can see it when it comes in, when a new registrant comes in and it's a name from Georgia trying to ship to a place in California on a Minnesota auction. There's red flags there, like, okay, and the names don't match up, and you're like, the system is doing a pretty darn good job. It's not perfect, but since we've been here, I think it's only been 1 or 2 times that somebody's actually been able to purchase something fraudulently. And we had our question marks about it, and we're able to at least.
One of the things you've had me do that's pretty inspiring, and instead of just saying this is what I want these thresholds to be, you had me make them like settings, so we can kind of evolve with the market, right? So we get a, a liquidation of a you know plastic manufacturing company, and that has a different type of bidder, different types of items, different
Mhm.
quantities. You kind of made them settings so you can adjust and modify and make sure that our thresholds adapt, and that was pretty cool. So like if we see something happening, we can change it at a moment's notice. It's not we'll get it next month. It's let's change it now, and that's pretty inspirational.
As
One
as an affiliate, I saw how fraud and no shows really impact your auction. If you're doing an auction and 10% of the people don't show up to buy the stuff, well, that negatively impacts the auctioneer in a very big way. But it's got to be that fine line between how can we get lots of good bidders in and keep the bad fraudsters out. And there's nothing to say a good bidder is going to perform every time. We all know about no shows. It's not a surprise. But and you can have the other thing that really caught my eye is, and this is something we haven't even really talked about yet, is how many bidders have 75 plus great invoices, and then they have that one $42 invoice that goes no show, and then we lose forever. And I'm like, okay, we need to fix this. We need to find out a way to slap their hand, say, pay the fee or whatever it is, but we need to re-engage these people, because I think once they're shut down, they're not coming back. And so we're losing good bidders that had a great record with us for small invoices that probably had a very legitimate reason. I mean, if you had 75 straight good invoices and then you miss one pickup, maybe your car did
Yeah.
break down.
You
Maybe
didn't
what
think you'd win the
we have
contents
to.
lot for $5. You just slipped your mind, or
Well, and even those guys are really good. And that's the other thing is, it's not just guys. There's, in the last 6-8 years now, there's so many more women on this site, which is fantastic. I just going through the list, and I do not ever remember it being. It's almost 50-50 in the names that I'm seeing coming. That was not the case 15 years ago. at all. It was a very male dominated industry, and now we're starting to see everybody coming in. But
We have
yeah,
an
there you go.
employee at KBID whose wife is really, and his name is Tyler. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever met. But his wife is an avid bidder on KBID, and at least 1, 2 times a month I hear the "What did you buy?" Coming out of his office because he checks on her account and why didn't you buy that? I gotta go out to White Bear now, or like
Yeah,
it's a different
I
world.
have a
It's
wife like that
changing.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
my wife, but it was always a problem because my wife, she would sometimes bid on auctions that I had set up, and I had no knowledge of this.
Mhm.
And so she'd be like, "Yeah, I bought something on your auction." I'm like, "Honey, you really shouldn't do that." And then she's like, "Well, it went for $5." And back then it was $2. That was the opening bid back then. One of the things I got was 6 cases of Mary Kate and Ashley party horns. I was selling a dollar store and they had these party horns. I still have them in my basement. So if anybody needs Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen party horns, I have cases of them that
This is
you
me
are more than welcome
formally
to.
requesting one. I
You
would
will
formally enjoy having one.
if my wife sees this and she goes down to the basement and gets them, I will bring them.
This will be the test. If she does that and doesn't bring out one, she'll know she pretended to watch. Yeah, yeah, look great, honey. This is something that excites me so much, and no one's come up with an idea like this. You mentioned finding a way to get feedback from affiliates because there's a lot of things we think are the good idea, right? Like, oh yeah, this is great. We'll do this rule. We'll do that. But sometimes it's not right, right? Like we're not on the ground all the time, seeing. Can you talk through what you're kind of thinking? I know it's early yet, but your board of affiliates or whatever you're going to call it. Talk me through
I'm not
that.
bored of affiliates.
Okay.
No, so the eyes and ears of this organization are the affiliates. They are the front line. They're the first ones that are going to see fraud. They're the first ones that are going to be impacted by changes we make. And so when I got this position, one of the things I've been hearing quite a bit is, hey, we just don't feel like we're 100% connected on the changes that are happening or what direction things are going. And we just want to be a little bit more involved. And so I want to create kind of like an affiliate product board or council. I don't have a good name for it yet, but I want to get a dozen, 15 affiliates. And every 6, 8 weeks or so, just have a Zoom call, a meeting, and say, hey, here's 5 things that we're seeing coming up. What are your thoughts on that? And then open it up for them for suggestions like, hey, we're really running into this problem with shipping. We're really running into this bidder is really causing a lot of problems. Just to make a full feedback loop so that we're making sure to listen to what they have to say, and then we can get their feedback on things that we need to work on and things that we need to sharpen in the system, because it's a very, very good system and it's worked for 20 plus years now. But there are areas that we need to sharpen up and get more focused. And we have a fantastic technological team that can make the things happen. There's the number of times that you've told me no, that we can't do something is zero. There's been just nothing that we can't do with the team that we have. And so let's use that. Let's go out and say, hey, where are the areas that we need to get better at? And right now that's making sure good bidders are getting on the site. That's my number one focus right now. And I think most affiliates would agree with that. But going forward, as we make the next steps of this organization, and they might not even be technological side, just from a operational side for affiliates. Hey, where are the pain points? Is it titles? That's one other thing I'm seeing is titles are taking too long in the mail. That's one area that I really want to get or we don't even have tracking on everything. And that's like, hey, I want to get a tracking number on every title that comes to and from this building. And that's something I want to bring the affiliates to say, how much of a burden is this going to be for you? In the long run, I think it's pretty dumb not to have a tracking on a title, because that's just my personal opinion. Everybody hates titles, but they are the necessary evil. And so little things like that, I want to just, the advertising that we're rolling out today, the third party advertising on the site, it's a trial. I want to hear from the affiliates. What did you think? Did you notice it? Did it negatively or positively impact anything? Those are the things that we just
And I'm
need
just going to clarify just for
feedback
in
on.
case someone hasn't seen this. So we don't do it once you're in an auction, but some of the global pages, for example, the home page, the auction list, the list of auctions, we added an advertising source, right? So it shows ads kind of like we use a service called Publish for it. But the idea is I heard some number like only a percentage of our traffic are bidders, right? We get a lot of traffic from people who may not be bidders. They may just be checking something out, found us through a Google search, and there's a way we can monetize that to help offset some of the other things or increase or dump it back into marketing or anything like. Is that kind of what you're thinking with that, PJ?
Yeah, so this trial, it's going to be 29 days or whatever it is, just for the month of August, and we're going to try it and see it. This is also something that we're going to make available to other OAS customers, so other people that lease our software. This is also something they may want. So this is a trial for both of them. We're just the guinea pig for it right now, and any revenue that we generate and ads from that is going to go right back into marketing. We're going to keep pushing your auctions because that's the engine that drives all of this. And so it's just a trial. We'll see how it goes, and after that, we'll evaluate. And I would love to hear feedback from affiliates on what do they think.
Another point I'd like to make on the ads is costs on almost everything in the world have gone up. So for example, the cost in serving images. Not only have we built an app that has resulted in a higher average image per lot, so people are adding more photos and they're higher quality photos because they're coming from a nice modern iPhone or
A
whatever.
nice Google Pixel
Yeah, or a Google Pixel
with a superior
people.
camera than Apple.
But there's a lot more of them, and at the same time the costs have like doubled for serving an image, right? So this is like one of those ways where we can keep encouraging better, more content, and maybe get some of that cost offset. So either way, that's ads. I'm sure if anyone has feedback, we did post out about it and post info. It's just a trial, depending on the feedback. I'm sure we'll adapt and change, anything from the location of the ads to, maybe changing, the size of them or what kind of ads can show. We get quite a bit of control in that. So it'll be interesting. Next thing I want to touch on is our AI cataloging. So we're actually rolling out the beta, right? We did ask for beta volunteers. We got a flood of people looking to try it, but the idea that you can just go take photos and have AI write up, 90% of your descriptions. We're actually rolling that out in the beta format. We are planning on possibly charging for that at some point, PJ. Is that correct? That will be something we charge on?
I mean, it's going to be a pretty significant advancement in technology. Once we get it all dialed in and it's working at the level affiliates need it to, it's going to be a considerable cost saver. That was always, for me as an affiliate, it was the worst part. Is taking the pictures was fine. It's sitting down, finding the time to type in and then actually have to use that part of my brain to do a description and then write it all down.
You
And
forgot
oh
a
crap,
picture of the VIN number, so you have to go
exactly.
get it.
Or I got a digit off because I'm sitting over here reading it off my phone, typing it. I'm like, the ability to have AI come in, and AI is getting better every single day. And it's pretty scary how good it can be describing things. I mean, if you've never played with it, if you've never played with AI, just go on a ChatGPT free account and put a picture in, any picture, and just have it roast that picture. And just look at the detail it can do describing all the different little facets of that picture and then making funny jokes on top of it. It can be pretty ruthless. But then take a bottle of water, just take this and put it on a picture of it on ChatGPT and say, describe this. And you'll see how fantastic it can do. And if you need more information, just say, tell me more about it. And it'll just spit out 2 more paragraphs about where did it come from and tell me about the company. So Jeremy and your team, you need to really dial in how much or how little AI how chatty it is, get the descriptions right. But it's going to do a lot of things. It's going to clean up. That's another focus of mine, is cleaning up just how our data looks. How does a listing look? Because one person can take a car and have XYZ details about it. Another person can do that exact same car. If we had a standard format for this kind of stuff, it's going to be easier for the bidder. It's going to lead to more bids, and it's just going to look better.
And just some of our evolution. Sorry, go ahead, PJ.
Yeah. The other thing that's on my chopping list is the titles of these auctions are getting out of control. Some people are writing entire paragraphs with every item that's in this auction. Nobody's reading that dang thing. I promise you. Just short and sweet. That is what's going to get people to click on it, and good pictures. Short and sweet, good pictures. Yeah, if you write, I get the keyword idea, but they're already keying in on the item that's in the auction. So your title is just becoming this long stream of thing that nobody is ever reading. I promise you. So that's another thing. But AI, back to AI. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to save a lot of money.
Yeah, so him and I have actually been working pretty aggressively, like reading the product of it. Okay, so upload some photos. What is it reading? And so the first thing we did is we trained our own model. We only work with our own models. Some of them are open source and this and that, but we trained on our own data. So like, look at all these photos, look at the descriptions that go with it. We actually ran into a problem. We were just using that as the data source, and the problem is that people have errors, right? So we were training on data that wasn't perfect. So not only did we open it up to other sources of data we collected, but we also made sure it can pull things from the internet, because some things like the stock details on a car, you can get it, right, pretty easily through the web. So it's actually this weird little balance. And one of the things that we have done that no one else does right now, everyone who has a tool like this just uploads the photos to ChatGPT, gets the description, returns that to you. One of the things we do is we actually take whatever you put in the title and description beforehand. For example, dimensions, a serial number if you can't get a good photo, a VIN number. Anything that you put in there beforehand actually gets incorporated into the description, and that's something that no one else has. So all the people are playing with the beta, and and when we release it in a few weeks, that's where we really go, above and beyond. You can put just the dimensions in the description, the thing that you can't get easy from the photos, and it'll incorporate that. And that's what no one else has right now. And so we're really excited. We've been working back and forth. I think I've been almost annoying you, PJ, over it, but very, very cool. On the
I'm happy
topic
that
of
you're
AI,
happy.
though, you are trying to revolutionize and innovate how we advertise. Can you talk a little bit about the new marketing platform you came up with?
Well, it's I didn't develop this, but it was an opportunity that has been presented to us. Is We marketed so many different places. If you go on Yahoo Fantasy Football, you might see a banner ad for K-Bid on there. All these different areas. Well, the next logical step in all of this is advertising on artificial intelligence, advertising on Claude and ChatGPT and all these places. So ChatGPT is we're going to be where we start. And we're going to do a trial there and see when someone is looking for auction services, because a lot of people are just using chat as basically a search engine now. They can type in, hey, what's a good auction house around me? It's not going to change their results, but you may see an ad for K-Bid somewhere on the page, just encouraging people to go there, and we'll see if chat wants to be nice to us because we're giving them money. But that's something everybody should be on the lookout for as you're using chat GPT is, hey, they got to make money for all these data centers and everything somehow. So it's not just going to be the subscription from end users, it's also going to be marketing companies that are getting in there. And so
One of the
like
opportunities I see is like, for example, I was looking how to take one of the links out of a watch band, right? So like we have an opportunity to show an ad for a watch we have up at auction right there in that. I don't know. I don't know if it'll pan out. We also have trialed other things that we always try to learn and grow. I think Reddit was another one we tried. We didn't get
you
the
have to
results we
try.
were necessarily expecting.
You know,
But either way,
we've
I'm
we've done
excited.
Pinterest in the past. We've done so many different things, and that's just, I mean, Jeremy Delgado does a fantastic job of showing us the right opportunities and showing us, hey, this traditional way is still the best way, and we are every couple of weeks we're evaluating what's the right use of marketing dollars and how are we going to get the best bang for the buck and to get new bidders in and to get old bidders re-engaged and all of these different avenues to get people bidding on auctions is ultimately what we're trying to do.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and ask a very, very loaded wrap up question here. So I want to know what KBID will look like in 5 years if we follow your direction. And that could be anything from the geography to the number of affiliates, number of bidders, the relationship. Talk to me about your direction for KBID over the next 5 years.
I don't know what it is for the next 5 months or 5 weeks, but over the next, ultimately what I want to make sure happens is that this company continues to be highly trusted, highly ethical, highly transparent, and that as we grow, we're not growing just for the sake of growth. I think it's very important that the affiliates that we bring on board are high quality. I think low quality affiliates that are not playing by the rules hurt us all. And so I want to make sure that what we're doing is professional, ethical. As far as growth goes, there's so much that's just going to happen organically. Like 6 years ago, we were just kind of starting to touch into Iowa a little bit. We had a little bit in South Dakota, a little bit in Wisconsin. Now we're Nebraska, Missouri. We've done things in Colorado and Tennessee and Florida, and it's going to keep growing that way as long as it's easy for the bidders to get those assets. We're obviously strongest in Minnesota. That's obviously where most of our bidders are. And so anybody that's outside of that Minnesota, at least initially, needs to be able to ship their assets efficiently, quickly, efficiently, and without a whole lot of expense. If they can continue to do that, and if we can continue to make shipping within our platform easy, for the affiliate and the buyer, we're going to see that growth just naturally happen organically, because a person could start in Chicago and be able to ship their assets to Minneapolis very cheap and efficiently. That builds that takes the strength of KBID, which is the bidding and the marketing, and the assets of the auctioneer in Illinois, and combines them in a good way. That shipping is the mechanism that has to happen. So if we can get shipping, I see it growing continue. And and as we use AI, and as we continue to have a great technological team that can clean up the site and add things like AI, it's going to be a good 5 years. I'm quite certain.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited. Just a message to all
You look
affiliates.
very excited.
No, I actually am. Just a message to affiliates. I literally come into work every single day so excited because I have not been told no to an idea. I get to hash out something I think that'll help everyone every single time. This is an exciting time to be a KBID related party, whether it's an affiliate or a bidder. And if someone wants to communicate with you and give an opinion or suggest something or just chat, what is the best way for them to do that, PJ?
The best way would probably be email, pj@k-bid.com. Another great way is, if you're an affiliate, stop by, say hi. We're right here in Medina, Maple Plain. We'd love to see you. If you're passing through town, or if you're on the way to an auction or whatever you're doing, just stop in and say hi. We want to build that relationship with you. And I was talking kind of with Tyler and Jeremy, and there's quite a few affiliates that we've just never met. I want to get out on the road. I want to meet people once I kind of get established here, and like, I don't even have stuff on my wall yet. We got to work on that. But once we get kind of set up here, we got a truck and we want to hit the road and go out. And I want to set up at removals and inspections and talk to bidders. We want to be an asset and a partner, and build that relationship so that we can go on and everybody can make a lot of money and be very successful, and in 40 years retire and be very happy and be on a yacht and a cruise somewhere. So.
Yeah, to be honest, if you ask really nicely, he'll pawn employees off to go help you for a day too. I got to go catalog
really nicely.
Yeah, you got to ask real nicely.
And you got to be testing a new AI app or mobile app. That helps a little bit too, but
yeah, just a little bit. But yeah, our last episode had, I think we're over 100 views right now. So a lot of affiliates are seeing it. Please, I thank you so much for watching it. If you made it here, I genuinely am super excited about what we're going to accomplish. It's just nice to be with someone who's hungry. This doesn't feel like work. This is us genuinely trying to help and keep things ethical. But seriously, thank you for watching.
You'll never work a day in your life.
There you go. Yeah, thank you all for watching. PJ, thank you for your time, and we'll all talk soon. See ya.
Thank you. Take care.